Good evening. If you're listening to this, then something inside you is ready for change. Not someday, not next Monday, today. As a physician who's spent years working with patients struggling to lose weight, I'm here to tell you something powerful and hopeful. You don't need extreme diets, endless cardio, or magic pills. You need a system, a repeatable process, a shift in mindset. And most importantly, you need to do the right small things every single day. That's where the 2 week shred challenge comes in. When it comes to sustainable weight loss, the first step you take each day matters more than most people realize. One of the most overlooked but critical habits I advise my patients to adopt is consuming a high protein breakfast within 90 minutes of waking. And no, this isn't a trendy diet tip, this is backed by years of clinical evidence and metabolic science. Let me break it down for you. When you wake up in the morning, your body is in a fasted state. You've gone roughly 7 to 9 hours without food. At this time, your body is highly sensitive to the nutrients you provide. What you choose to eat first doesn't just give you energy, it sets off a cascade of hormonal and metabolic signals that influence how your body manages hunger, stores fat, regulates blood sugar, and even affects your cognitive performance throughout the day. Now, let's talk about protein not just as a nutrient but as a metabolic tool. Unlike carbohydrates or fats, protein has the highest thermic effect of food, meaning your body uses more energy to digest and process it. This contributes to a slight metabolic boost, which, compounded daily, can make a noticeable difference in your calorie balance over time. But more importantly, protein plays a vital role in satiety, the sensation of feeling full. Studies have shown that a high protein breakfast can reduce levels of ghrelin, the hormone responsible for stimulating hunger, and increase levels of peptide YY and GLP-1, hormones that promote fullness. What this means practically is that when you eat a protein rich breakfast, you're less likely to reach for snacks mid morning, less prone to experience blood sugar crashes, and more likely to maintain balanced energy levels throughout the day. I see it all the time. People skip breakfast or grab something quick and carb heavy, a muffin, a slice of toast, or worse, just coffee, and wonder why they're starving by 11 a.m. and binge eating by dinner. That's not a failure of willpower. That's a failure of nutrition timing and macronutrient strategy. If you want your body to start burning fat rather than storing it, you need to give it the right biochemical environment to do so. And that starts with how you break your fast. So, what should your breakfast look like? It should contain 25 to 30 grams of high quality protein, ideally from whole food sources or a well formulated protein supplement. Think of 3 to 4 eggs with sauteed vegetables, a cup of Greek yogurt with chia seeds and berries, or a protein shake blended with greens, avocado, and a scoop of clean protein powder. The point is not perfection. The point is intentional nutrition that aligns with your body's physiology. Another often missed benefit: stabilized blood sugar. A breakfast high in refined carbs spikes your glucose, which then plummets, creating that mid morning crash, leading to irritability, brain fog, and sugar cravings. But a protein dominant meal slows down glucose absorption and promotes more even energy levels throughout your day. That's not just good for your waistline, it's essential for your productivity and mental clarity. And let me say this clearly: if you're someone who's been struggling with late night eating or emotional snacking in the evening, a solid breakfast can be one of the most powerful changes you make. Because when you start the day grounded with blood sugar stabilized and hunger hormones balanced, you're far less likely to end the day in a binge cycle. It's not about eating less, it's about eating smarter and earlier. So, from a medical and metabolic standpoint, your breakfast is your first act of self leadership. You're telling your body, I'm in control, I'm fueling you to perform, not just survive. Do it right, and you'll see that fat loss is no longer about restriction. It's about precision, consistency, and respect for how your body truly works. When patients come into my clinic asking how they can lose weight without crash diets or unsustainable exercise routines, one of the first things I recommend is something so simple that most people underestimate its power: walking. Specifically, walking 10,000 steps a day. And yes, that means every single day. This is not just a casual suggestion, it's a foundational lifestyle intervention with deep clinical backing, and it has profound implications for fat loss, metabolic health, and long term vitality. Let's be clear: walking is not just physical activity, it is a metabolic signal. It tells your body that it's alive, engaged, and ready to regulate itself properly. In the context of weight loss, walking improves insulin sensitivity, which is the body's ability to effectively shuttle glucose out of the bloodstream and into cells for energy. Why is this important? Because poor insulin sensitivity, also known as insulin resistance, is a primary driver of weight gain, especially around the midsection, and the act of walking, particularly after meals, can significantly reduce post meal glucose spikes by up to 30%. That's not a trivial benefit. That's your body operating more efficiently, storing less fat, and using more of your food for fuel instead of fat storage. Another critical point often missed is the effect of walking on cortisol, the stress hormone. In today's high pressure world, most people are living in a state of chronic sympathetic activation, fight or flight mode. When cortisol remains elevated over time, it promotes fat storage, especially visceral fat, which wraps around your internal organs and increases your risk for cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and inflammation. Walking, especially outdoors or in natural light, activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest state, helping reduce cortisol and shift your body into a fat burning environment. I always tell my patients, if your hormones are working against you, weight loss becomes a constant uphill battle. But if you walk consistently, you begin to create hormonal harmony, the kind where your body isn't panicking, isn't inflamed, and isn't trying to conserve fat as a survival mechanism. Instead, it's calmly processing food, balancing blood sugar, and maintaining a healthy metabolism. Now, let's talk about energy expenditure. People often focus solely on their 30-minute workout as the main driver of calorie burn. But here's the truth: non exercise activity thermogenesis NEAT, which includes walking, standing, fidgeting, and every small movement throughout the day, often accounts for more daily calorie burn than formal exercise sessions. Walking 10,000 steps can burn anywhere from 300 to 500 extra calories per day, depending on your pace and weight. Do the math over a week or month, and it adds up not just to a number on the scale, but to better cardiovascular health, enhanced digestion, and improved lymphatic flow. It's also important to consider the psychological benefits. Walking serves as a meditative state for many people, a chance to disconnect from screens, process emotions, and reduce anxiety. For individuals prone to emotional eating, this is especially powerful. When you walk, you shift your emotional state. You make space between impulse and action, and often that space is enough to keep someone from reaching for junk food or overeating at night. Let me emphasize: walking is not just walking, it is low impact, joint friendly, requires no special equipment, and is accessible to nearly everyone. And the beauty of it, you can break it up: 10 minutes after breakfast, 10 after lunch, 10 after dinner. Those short walks are incredibly effective at flattening blood sugar curves and stimulating fat burning. This isn't theory, this is proven physiology. So, if you want to lose weight, feel better, and take control of your health without burnout or extremes, start by walking 10,000 steps every day. Do it intentionally, do it consistently, and you will begin to see that the most powerful changes often come from the simplest habits practiced with purpose. One of the first things I ask my patients when they come to me with concerns about stubborn weight gain: fatigue, and brain fog is deceptively simple. How much water are you drinking and when? You'd be surprised how often people underestimate the role of hydration in fat loss and overall metabolic health. In fact, one of the most overlooked yet critical daily habits I recommend is this: drink 16 to 20 ounces of water immediately upon waking before your first cup of coffee or any caffeine. Why? Because your metabolism, your digestion, your brain function, and your hunger hormones all depend on this single foundational act. Let's start with physiology. When you sleep for 7 to 9 hours, your body naturally loses water through respiration and perspiration. That means you wake up in a mildly dehydrated state. Your cells are thirsty, your tissues are dry, your blood is slightly more viscous. If you roll out of bed and go straight to coffee, which acts as a diuretic, you're amplifying that dehydration before replenishing your body. The result? A cascade of metabolic consequences that subtly sabotage your fat loss efforts. Water, on the other hand, acts as a natural metabolic booster. Research has shown that drinking around 16 ounces of water in the morning can increase resting metabolic rate by 24-30% for the next hour. Think about that. With no supplements, no stimulants, and no workouts, you can elevate your calorie burn simply by hydrating properly. And yet, most people are walking around in a low grade state of dehydration, wondering why they're tired, hungry, and not losing weight. But hydration does more than stoke your metabolism. It plays a vital role in hormonal regulation, especially the hormones that govern hunger and satiety. When you're dehydrated, your body can misinterpret thirst as hunger. This leads people to eat when what their body truly needs is fluid. That mid morning snack, it's often a hydration problem, not a hunger problem. By drinking water first thing in the morning, you blunt those false hunger signals and begin the day with better control over your appetite. Now let's talk about digestion. Proper hydration is essential for optimal bowel function, which is something most people don't think about until it becomes a problem. But if your digestive tract isn't functioning smoothly, if you're constipated, bloated, or irregular, your body becomes inflamed, sluggish, and inefficient at eliminating waste. That directly affects not just how you feel, but how you lose fat. Water acts as a lubricant for the gastrointestinal system and helps move waste through the colon. Without it, detoxification slows down and your system becomes congested. A morning glass of water also supports liver function, which is crucial because your liver is your body's fat burning control center. It processes hormones, metabolizes fats, and filters toxins. Dehydration places added stress on the liver and kidneys, which can reduce their efficiency. Think of hydration as giving your liver the green light to do its job properly instead of asking it to work overtime in a compromised state. If you want to level up this habit even more, I suggest adding a pinch of sea salt or a squeeze of fresh lemon juice to your morning water, because these additions can help replenish trace minerals and support electrolyte balance, especially if you're transitioning into a lower carb or anti inflammatory eating style. Many people feel sluggish or lightheaded when they cut processed foods, not because of the diet, but because they're missing essential electrolytes. And salt helps bridge that gap naturally. Let me be clear, this is not about drinking gallons of water or jumping on a hydration trend. This is about strategic timing. Hydration before caffeine sets the tone for your entire day. It improves mental clarity, sharpens focus, and prepares the body for nutrient absorption. It also prevents the dehydration that so often leads to headaches, sugar cravings, and energy crashes later in the day. So, if you're serious about fat loss, start every morning with intention. Before the coffee, before the chaos, give your body what it truly needs: water. You'll be amazed at how such a simple act can have such profound effects on your energy, hunger, and weight loss journey. When people hit a plateau in their weight loss journey, they often look to food or exercise for answers. But there's one silent driver of fat gain that most overlook: sleep deprivation. As a physician, I can't emphasize enough how central sleep is to fat loss, hormonal balance, and metabolic function. If you're not getting 7 to 8 hours of high quality sleep each night, your body is quite literally working against your fat loss goals, no matter how perfectly you eat or how hard you train. Let's begin with what happens hormonally when you don't sleep enough. Two critical hormones, ghrelin and leptin, are directly impacted. Ghrelin tells your brain that you're hungry, leptin signals satiety and tells you to stop eating. Studies have consistently shown that sleep deprivation increases ghrelin levels and decreases leptin. That means the less you sleep, the hungrier you feel, and the less satisfied you are after eating. You're not imagining those intense cravings for sugar or carbs after a poor night's sleep. That's biology taking the wheel. But the disruption doesn't stop there. Sleep loss also elevates cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone. While cortisol plays an essential role in waking us up and keeping us alert, chronically high levels, especially when caused by lack of sleep, promote fat storage, particularly in the abdominal area. This is not just an aesthetic concern. Visceral fat is metabolically active and associated with an increased risk of heart disease, insulin resistance, and inflammation. Essentially, inadequate sleep makes your body store fat even if your calorie intake hasn't changed. Another factor is insulin sensitivity. After just one night of reduced sleep, your cells become less responsive to insulin, meaning your body has to produce more of it to keep blood sugar levels in check. This condition, known as insulin resistance, is a key player in weight gain, type 2 diabetes, and metabolic syndrome. In other words, sleep loss makes your body less efficient at processing carbohydrates, leading to elevated blood sugar and fat storage. Now let's talk about growth hormone. This hormone plays a key role in muscle repair, fat metabolism, and cellular regeneration, and it's primarily secreted during deep sleep. If you're not entering deep restorative stages of sleep, you're missing out on one of the most potent natural fat burning and muscle preserving hormones your body can produce. No supplement or workout can replace what your body does naturally during sleep. And then there's the behavioral component. When you're sleep deprived, your brain's decision making center, the prefrontal cortex, doesn't function optimally. Meanwhile, the brain's reward centers become more sensitive. This combination leads to impulsive behavior, poor food choices, and reduced willpower. You're more likely to skip workouts, snack on high calorie junk foods, and justify behaviors that go against your goals. Again, this isn't a lack of discipline, it's a neurological shift caused by lack of rest. For those in a fat loss phase or a structured challenge like a 2 week shred, I tell patients to treat sleep like their most important training session. That means creating a sleep environment that promotes deep, uninterrupted rest. Keep your room cool, ideally 65-68 degrees Fahrenheit, dark and quiet. Shut off screens at least an hour before bed, since blue light disrupts melatonin production. If necessary, consider blackout curtains, white noise machines, or magnesium supplementation under guidance to improve sleep quality. One night of good sleep won't magically melt fat away, but consistent, high quality sleep can reset your hormonal landscape in ways that make fat loss easier, hunger more manageable, and energy levels higher. Sleep isn't passive, it's an active metabolic process. It's when your body rebalances, repairs, and recalibrates. If you want your metabolism to function efficiently, your brain to make good choices, and your hormones to support fat loss, then sleep is not optional, it's essential. So if you've been stuck, frustrated, and doing everything right with no results, it may be time to stop looking at your food log and start looking at your pillow. Sleep is not a luxury, it's your metabolic superpower. When people think about weight loss, they often focus on food and exercise: what to eat, how much to move, when to fast. And while those are important pieces of the puzzle, One of the most powerful tools you have is completely free, takes only a minute, and has nothing to do with physical effort. I'm talking about mental rehearsal, specifically visualizing your healthiest self every morning for just 60 seconds. As a physician who's worked with thousands of patients on lifestyle transformation, I can tell you this: if you don't shift your identity, your habits will eventually collapse under the weight of old beliefs. Why is visualization so powerful, especially in a fat loss journey? Because your brain cannot distinguish between what is vividly imagined and what is real. When you close your eyes and see yourself stronger, leaner, more energized, more confident, your brain starts to lay down new neural pathways that make that version of you feel more attainable, more familiar, and more automatic. You begin acting in alignment with the person you are becoming rather than the person you've been. This isn't pseudoscience, it's neuroscience. Functional MRI scans show that when athletes mentally rehearse their performance, the same areas of the brain light up as when they physically perform. The same applies to behavior change. When you visualize yourself choosing nourishing foods, completing your workouts, walking with energy, saying no to late night cravings, you're reinforcing the identity of a healthy, disciplined person. And identity, more than motivation, is what sustains transformation. Most people try to change their behavior without ever updating the internal image they hold of themselves. They still see themselves as someone who struggles with weight, who always fails diets, who hates exercise. And as long as that self image remains, the subconscious mind will work to keep their actions consistent with that identity. That's why visualization is not just a mental exercise, it's a daily recalibration of your internal GPS. You are showing your brain where you want to go so it can begin filtering the world through that lens. Let's talk about hormones for a moment. When you visualize yourself succeeding, whether that's finishing a hard workout, feeling great in your clothes, or reaching a goal weight, you begin to release dopamine, the brain's reward chemical. This creates a feedback loop that makes you want to repeat those behaviors. It turns your effort into something that feels rewarding rather than punishing. That simple 1 minute ritual each morning can shift your entire hormonal and emotional tone for the day. You feel more in control, more hopeful, and more empowered to act in ways that serve your long term health. And it's not just about positive thinking, this is strategic priming. You're preparing your nervous system for success. Instead of waking up and immediately reacting to stress, social media, or distractions, you're taking control of your mental environment. You're choosing your narrative. You're stepping into a leadership role in your own health journey. I often advise patients to do this right after waking, even before checking their phone. Sit still, close your eyes, breathe deeply, and see yourself already living as your healthiest self. Feel it in your posture, your breath, your mood. Visualize the meals you choose, the workout you complete, the energy you radiate. That mental picture becomes your anchor. When temptation hits later in the day, you now have a vision to return to, a reminder of who you are becoming. This habit might sound too small to matter, but I watched it change lives. It keeps people focused, it makes habits stick, and it builds belief, which is the fuel behind every transformation. You are not just losing weight, you are becoming someone new. And that change begins not in your body, but in your mind. So take 60 seconds every day, because if you don't see it, you won't become it. Exercise is often viewed through the narrow lens of calorie burning. How many calories did I burn during that session? How fast can I sweat off the weight? But as a physician, I want you to understand this clearly. Exercise is not just about expending energy, it's a message you send to your body. When you train with intention, specifically 30 minutes a day, 5 times a week, alternating resistance training with high intensity interval training, HIT, you're not just working out, you're shifting your hormonal landscape, activating fat burning pathways, and preserving the very muscle mass that keeps your metabolism alive. Let's start with resistance training. Many people, especially those trying to lose weight quickly, avoid strength training out of fear that it will make them bulky or slow down their progress. But nothing could be further from the truth. When you lift weights, even your own body weight, you are sending a signal to your body to preserve and build muscle. Why is that important for fat loss? Because muscle is metabolically active tissue. It burns calories even when you're resting. More muscle equals a higher resting metabolic rate, which means your body becomes more efficient at burning fat around the clock, not just during your workouts. Beyond metabolism, strength training improves insulin sensitivity. That means your body becomes better at utilizing carbohydrates for energy rather than storing them as fat. In clinical terms, it helps you avoid the roller coaster of blood sugar spikes and crashes that drive cravings, mood swings, and fat storage, particularly around the midsection. Now let's talk about HIIT, short bursts of high intensity effort, followed by brief periods of recovery. This style of training does more than just get your heart rate up. It stimulates excess post exercise oxygen consumption, EPOC, often referred to as the afterburn effect. This means your body continues to burn calories for hours after the workout ends as it works to restore oxygen levels, repair muscle fibers, and rebalance hormones. A 20-minute HIIT session can yield a fat burning effect that lingers far beyond what a longer session of steady state cardio would provide. But what's often underappreciated is that consistent, intentional exercise has a profound impact on your mental and emotional state. Movement, especially at higher intensities, triggers the release of endorphins, dopamine, and brain derived neurotrophic factor (BDNF), a compound that helps with focus, motivation, and mood stability. These are the exact neurochemicals that reduce the likelihood of emotional eating, improve decision making, and increase adherence to other healthy habits like good nutrition and sleep. In short, when you exercise, your brain works better. And when your brain works better, your health behaviors become easier to sustain. Exercise also teaches discipline and structure, which are crucial for long term success. When you commit to training 5 times a week, you're not just sculpting your body, you're reinforcing the identity of someone who follows through. And this identity shift has a ripple effect into every other area of your life: how you eat, how you sleep, how you handle stress. For those on a fat loss journey, especially something like a 2 week shred challenge, this consistency is everything. You don't need hours in the gym, you need focused intensity and intentional movement. You can do bodyweight workouts at home. You can use resistance bands or dumbbells. You can combine squats, lunges, push ups, planks, burpees, and mountain climbers into a powerful 30-minute session. The goal is not to be perfect, the goal is to show up. When you exercise with intention, you're not just burning fat, you're building resilience, both physically and mentally. And that resilience will carry you far beyond a 2 week challenge. It will help you sustain your transformation for months, years, and the rest of your life. So move with purpose, lift with confidence, sprint with focus. And remember, you're not just working out, you're becoming someone stronger in every way.